Hi, Kieran here again. Hope you're all good. This is a response video to Loreleila, and now I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Loreleila. It's a response to your video, questions for vegetarians. Now, first an apology. We had an exchange by text by message, written message, about like democracy on YouTube and stuff, about 6 months ago, and I didn't get back to you. Sorry about that. Hopefully this response will make up for that a little bit. I'll try to get back to you on the other subject as soon as I can. Unfortunately, I'm a massive procrastinator, and I just get snowed down with owing lots of replies to people. Again, I'm owing loads of replies to people right now, and but here I am making a fresh sort of video on a new subject. So sometimes, I don't know, life's not perfect. I'm trying to do what I can motivate myself to do, which is the subject, part of the subject I'm going to talk about now with this vegetarianism stuff. Yeah, I'm a vegetarian. I've had a long, complicated road to becoming a vegetarian. I was like a vegetarian for 2 years when I was a kid, from 12 to 14, and I think the reason I gave up vegetarianism then, because I was quite impressed by this argument that by breeding animals we're actually giving the animals life, maybe a life that's worth living, even if we do slaughter them at the end really horribly. And I was very impressed by that argument. And that argument, yeah, I still mean it has some weight for me. But I think when I was 30, I think about 7 years ago, I became a vegetarian again. But then I had sort of health problems. I think you mentioned something about you going through the same thing where you stopped being a vegetarian again. Basically, I found I was not getting enough protein. I handled it quite badly. I should have eaten a little bit more soya, I think, and I didn't feel very well being a vegetarian, even though when I was a kid I didn't have any sign of that. But then, a year or two ago, I'll give it another go and made sure I ate a lot of veggie burgers, which are great. And I'm absolutely fine being a vegetarian. I think I forget how long, a year or a year and a half I've been a proper vegetarian. Though I actually recently found out that jelly babies and fruit pastels have got some gelatin in them. I didn't know anything about that, so I've only really been a vegetarian since I found that out. Anyway, you talk a lot about hypocrisy. I think it's a bit strong a word for what you're trying to say there. I think that hypocrisy is like people not practicing what they preach. I don't think you're a hypocrite at all, because you're not really preaching much. You're kind of being really modest. So by saying you're a hypocrite, you guarantee that you're not a hypocrite, I think. And a lot of people you're talking about aren't really hypocrites, unless they're being really preachy about it. I mean, if you got a person, who's a mere vegetarian who's really freaking out about any cruelty to animal whatsoever, then yeah, you're right. By drinking milk, that person is actually inflicting some cruelty on an animal. What I think you definitely are right in saying is that it's kind of inconsistent. Yeah, there is sort of moral inconsistency. If you do one, you can do good in one area, even if you aren't being preachy. Even if you're saying I'm not a good person, I'm just trying to do a little bit of good in one way, and I'm a terrible failure as a moral person in other areas. Even if you say that, I mean, that guarantees you're not a hypocrite. But I think that you can still be inconsistent. But what can you do? I mean, we've got to make progress, and I don't think you're going to turn into Mother Teresa overnight, and I'm not going to turn into Mother Teresa either. we can make little advances. I think it's more realistic. Make little reforms in our lives in the right direction. I mean, I try to be ethical in some ways, but I'm definitely part of the problem in probably most ways. But it's still better to make a little advance, even if it makes you more inconsistent, probably, because as long as you're honest with yourself and others that it is only just an advance in one direction. I mean, yeah, I've taken a step of becoming a vegetarian, but I'm not, I still shop in a major supermarket, and I don't really look very carefully at where my clothes are made. Maybe they're made in sweatshops or whatever. God knows where the stuff I'm buying comes from. I've made a start, but I could do so much more. So yeah, so as I say, I'm a vegetarian now, but I did actually a couple of years ago. I did try to be a vegan. I do believe I should be a vegan, partly for the reasons you gave about the cruelty, but also, I mean, I think my major reason, or the most solid reason to be a vegetarian in my book, is this business about global warming, with I think a large chunk of our greenhouse gases come from animals that we keep. We got the cows farting, and of course with that you got dairy cows farting, presumably as much as the other cows. Look at the chickens, I don't know if they fart, but they presumably breathe out carbon dioxide. When we could have plants growing in their place. I guess it's all very complicated, this business, but yeah, I mean, I'm a utilitarian, so that's sort of where I'm coming from ethically. But I'm kind of more focused. You might, if you want to watch some of my other videos, I'm getting in a bit of a tangle with this idea of making an infinite world and long-term sort of stuff. And basically, I'm a kind of future-oriented utilitarian. Basically, I want to maximize the chance of making a long future for intelligent life, and I'm also into this sort of transhumanism thing. It's turned into sort of cyborgs and stuff like that. Making new universes. It's all crazy stuff. But basically, the upshot of it is that I don't worry too much about our well-being now, as other sort of utilitarians would worry about the happiness of the greatest number of creatures now. I'm more oriented to making a kind of sane humanity that's going to take us into the future sensibly. So that's why I'm worried about the sort of greenhouse effect and stuff. But also that's why I'm worried about cruelty, because I just think that, just like I think I heard a few years ago some studies saying that countries with the death penalty actually more cruel. They have more higher murder rates. They're kind of more barbaric. I think that I worry that this sort of having a society built on sort of butchery, doing unspeakable things to living, feeling creatures. There might be some kind of effect where it makes us more cruel to each other and more barbaric, and less caring about ourselves and the future and all that. So I think that's part of the reason for my vegetarianism as well, as the cruelty. And that I think that effect is probably greater with the meat side of things rather than the dairy, because it just is, what we do to the meat cows is just a bit more barbaric. I mean, maybe it is quicker or whatever, but it is more of a breakdown in it is just it's more violent and so on. It's I worry about those sort of effects. So what else can I say? Yeah, I think that the thing you said was quite interesting about dairy cows having bad lives. I mean, I think I would have thought that a lot of the meat cows would have their male children taken from them as well. I'm totally ignorant about the realities. I don't know how long these cows live for and stuff. And that's all very important and interesting to look into. Yeah, I think that taking a child away from the parent is awful. I don't know. I don't know if the milking is. You painted quite a bleak picture of what the milking is like. I mean, is it that bad? I mean, they presumably aren't milked that much of the day. And how painful is the actual milking? How uncomfortable? Yeah, they are slaves and they're herded in and out and stuff. But I don't know if that's. I don't know quite how bad it is. And again, I think with the meat cows, you get in cruelty during their lives as well. We've got a lot of castration and killing of the males going on, which must be presumably a lifelong bad thing for some of them. And again, with the eggs side of things, I can believe you probably did a good job of treating your chickens well, but when you're buying chickens in the supermarket, you've got to worry about what these big farmers, on these big farms, really profit-making kind of machines, businesses, how they gonna treat the animals. And the pictures I've seen of loads of chickens in big barns, and it doesn't look like that great a time. It doesn't look that natural. They look very crowded compared to what must be their natural state. Oh yeah, the other thing is overfishing as well. I should have mentioned that before. It's not just the greenhouse effect. With the fish is overfishing. Fish, I've heard, seen scary TV programs about fish populations collapsing. Even if there's a chance that's true, I mean, for the sake of the taste of meat, we shouldn't be risking that. Even if there's a 1 in 100 chance of some mega fish population collapse, then we shouldn't be messing with that, I think. I mean, is there anything else to say? No, I think I've kind of covered it there. Yeah, don't think of yourself as a hypocrite, for God's sake. You're doing great stuff. I mean, for years I ate, also, yeah, I was a vegetarian. I don't know if I mentioned this. I ate fish for a long time because I found myself getting weak. So, just drawing the line. We've all got to draw the line somewhere, and it's very difficult to be consistent and be a human being. So, anyway. All the best. Thank you so much for making that video and inviting us to reply. All the best.